So welcome everyone to the monthly digital drop-in free webinar. I'm so excited to have you joining us for our first event of 2025. And I'm especially excited about our guest today, Stephen Ekstrom from Learn Tourism. So today, I want to start just by giving you a little bit of information. I know some of you are part of our email network, and so you may have already heard, but I'm super excited to have Learn Tourism joining us today because they have officially taken over the JB Media Institute and DIY Tourism Marketing Conference brands. So as of the beginning of the year, we are now working together as a team, along with a number of other awesome what I call learning nerds who I have very quickly fallen in love with. And so that makes today's topic, I think, even more exciting for me. I've spent a lot of time working on educational programs. I've learned a lot through trial and error, but it's so important to have other people who are in the field doing trainings, workshops, events, online courses to brainstorm with, learn from, and share ideas with, because it is a rapidly changing world, and the behaviors of learners, the things that they want, the things that they're searching for. Some things I think are core things that stay the same, but there's other things that are kind of constantly in flux with the technology. And I also want to remind everybody, if you haven't checked out DIYtourismmarketing.com, our conference was moved to the spring. So instead of having our conference in November, we'll be having it March 17th and 18th. And I'm again so thrilled to just invite more people to join us. A lot of times the fall was a hard time for some folks. So hopefully, if that didn't work in your schedule, then March 17th and 18th will. And you can come out here to Asheville and enjoy our city and our region and help us rebuild after everything that's happened in the last few months. So I'm going to end the poll and share it, but I'm also going to hand the mic over to Stephen. And I am really looking forward to hearing what you have to share today about how we can build educational programs that don't suck and are really awesome and serve the people that we want to teach and help learn.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for the opportunity and for putting this together. I share your enthusiasm and appreciation for the work that you do and that you and Justin have done with the JB Media Institute and DIY Tourism Brands. We are so excited to be working with you and sharing in this monstrous task of making education better for the tourism industry. So I'm really proud of you and the work that you guys have done and excited that we're working together. So thank you for that. Oh, hi, Peach. I see some familiar names and destinations in our chat. Several destinations that we're already working with, and several that I'm sure we'll be in touch with soon. But what I really wanted to share with you is a story about how I came to work in education. Um, I am a nerd. I love to learn. I realized that was my passion a little bit later in life, but it has really driven and guided everything that I've done and everything that I do. Um, I started working in tourism back in the 1990s, and when I had plenty of hair, although I can still do a hair toss if I need to. Um, I worked in museums, attractions, restaurants, activities, all of the things that you could do and places that you could visit and experiences that you could have while traveling and helping to bring those to market. I spent another 10 years or so working mostly with destinations and helping to identify product and helping to bring that to the market with an emphasis on travel, trade, and tourism. And along the way, I was subjected to lots and lots of tourism education programs, uh, workshops, webinars, panel discussions, um, podium discussions, lectures, you name it, all of it. And along the way, my sister, Sheena, who is an instructional designer and educator and organizational psychologist by trade, asked if she could come along with me to one of the trade shows. We left the first workshop. She looked at me and said, "Are they all this bad?" And I embarrassingly had to admit yes. But just wait until you're subjected to a webinar. So that sparked something in me to understand and to realize, well, why is it that so much of the education that we have in the tourism space just sucks? Um, and Beyond that, what would it take to fix it? So we spent 4 years working on technologies and testing and methodologies, understanding, learning the science and the psychology and the data behind how people learn and how people interact, whether that be online or in person with knowledge. And we came across a few different things, and I am delighted to share them with you today. The first, of course, is what are you going to learn? What do you want to learn? Um, Most of us want to learn to do something, not just to have a general understanding of a concept. We call this a transformation. What is somebody going to be able to do after taking that program that they weren't able to do before? So, for those of you who are joining us today and sharing in our great news and our celebration, what I want you to be able to do at the end of this chat is identify a course topic that really does lead to a transformation. Those transformations end up becoming your modules. You can build content and curriculum from that. But transformation is what are you going to be able to do that you aren't doing now or aren't doing well that you want people to be able to do by the end of your educational program? It's tactile, it's actionable. It is not talking at people, it is giving them tools. Um, the second piece of our learning was it came from and I'll use webinars as a great example, and you've already participated in the poll, you've already participated in the chat, so I think Sarah's onto something here. um, when participating in education programs that suck, I usually would sit in the back of the room and check my email, or I would get up and make myself a cup of coffee during the webinar, or I'd let something play in my ear while I was mowing my lawn. um, that didn't give me the opportunity to be an active learner, to be a part of my educational experience. So, what we identified was engagement. Engagement is critical to people being able to learn. Um, there's a wonderful quote. I'm going to mess it up, so I'm going to paraphrase it. Show me, and I observe. Teach me. I'm messing it up. I'm not. I should have written it down before. Long story short, involve me. Involve me in the process of learning. Um, that engagement is a critical component in people's self-discovery. By engaging with the screen, with each other, with the instructor, with the materials, with the content, uh, with the spaces around them, and the tools that are at their disposal, people have the opportunity to discover for themselves what they need to learn in the process of getting to that transformation. So that second point is engagement. What are you going to do in your training program that makes sure people are engaged with the content, with each other, with the screen, with the instructor, with the material, with the notes, with the tools, with all of these things that are at your disposal to make sure that they're actively learning. The third thing that we discovered came from understanding that, I can't make it to all the education programs that I want to be at. I can't be in multiple places at once. And, you know, there's a great program out of Spain, but I don't speak Spanish. So we identified what we refer to as accessibility. And accessibility for us means two different things. First, it means is the training available when and where people are most motivated to learn? One of the greatest barriers between somebody starting a program and finishing a program is its general availability to them. If it is only available on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock in a certain place, the only people who can participate in that training are the people who are available, who have transportation, and who are motivated to be there. If that program is available anytime, your volunteer on a Saturday morning, your night audit at the hotel, your front desk worker, your receptionist, they can all take it when and where they are most motivated to do so. That will boost your completion rates. The other form of accessibility that we talk about is how people learn. Depending on where you go for information on learning styles and learning technique and learning types, you'll find there anywhere from 6 to 12 or 15 different learning styles. Everybody learns differently. Some people are kinetic learners, some people are auditory learners, some people are visual learners. Um, so you have to be able to deliver training to them how they learn best. A great example of this is that recording of a webinar that's broadcast, and the data shows nobody actually watches them, or very, very few people actually watch them. In part because it only appeals to the visual learner. It doesn't appeal to the learner who has to be writing or doing some kinetic exercise, or who has to be reading, or who has to be involved in a thinking process or an exercise. So that accessibility accounts for both when, where, and most importantly, how people learn. Um, Pre-reads and manuals are a great example of how not to do it. You know, the data shows us that less than 17% of people read before class as adult learners. Um, it's even worse for manuals and product manuals and training manuals. Short form video is a great supplement for that. So now that we've identified the TEA, transformations, engagement, and accessibility, I want to learn from you. What are some of the things that you want to learn? I see we already have a comment from Lauren in looking at a training for school directors, teachers, and interested teachers to learn best practices, um, the background of the movement and engagement with behavior. I think that's fantastic. What are some of the other learning objectives that you are trying to achieve, the transformations that you're looking to achieve from your participants, from your stakeholders this coming year? Feel free to chime in the chat. We're going to be reading some of those out for you. Um, when developing a transformation, it's tactile. What are we going to be able to do afterwards that we weren't able to do before? So when we apply this to something like tourism ambassador training, I can teach somebody that tourism is an economic boost to the economy. That's fantastic. Now they know that tourism is an economic boost to the economy. But what are they going to be able to do with that knowledge? Are they going to be able to speak to the economic impact of tourism? Are they going to be able to advocate for tourism? Are they going to be able to uh, communicate intelligently with civic leaders about the importance of tourism in the community? Transformations, what are they going to be able to do? Um, Another great example of a transformation, and Eric, I know you're on the line here, so feel free to chime in with some of the top modules that folks ask for, is understanding what there is available in the community. There's nothing worse than than somebody standing at your hotel front desk saying, "Where do I go to eat? I have free time this evening. What can I do?" And the person looks back at them and says, "This town is boring. There's nothing to do. We're all bored. There's a fast food joint around the corner." That is a DMO's nightmare. So, um, we can teach people about what the resources are available in their community and what there are things to do and places to go and where to eat. But most importantly, we can teach them how to share those resources with visitors. That is the actionable item. That's the transformation. To be able to share with confidence resources and activities and restaurants that are available in the community. Sometimes it's just teaching people how to use a DMO's website to find the restaurant directories, to find the event listings, to find the activities and things to do. When we get to there's Eric chiming in with the top modules. Cultural competency, understanding international visitors. Well, again, it's one thing to understand international visitors, but are you greeting them all with authenticity and grace? Are you delivering that warm and gracious welcome to everybody? So when we talk about some of those transformations, it can be applied in any situation. Um, I'm not going to mess this one up, but one of my other favorite quotes is, "Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a day." No, I messed it up. Darn it. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for life. Without transformations, we're throwing a lot of fish at people. It's like the Swedish chef in the Muppets. Hurdy-gurdy-gurdy-flugen. It's just throwing fish at people. Well, that's not what we're here for. As educators, our job is to teach them to fish. I've got to stop relying on quotes, is what I learned in this lesson, because I can't get them right, or I'm going to have to write them down beforehand. And every day is a learning opportunity. To be better today than I was yesterday is a wonderful value. Sarah, you're about to chime in. Do you have a good quote for me?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in and thanks everybody who's sharing what they're working on as far as their, potential educational programs or courses. Please feel free to keep adding to that list if you've already got something in the works that you're working on. But I just wanted to say one of the biggest things I've learned over the last 18 years of teaching, and I said this to Justin, my business partner, a few years ago, was that, I teach a lot of very specific technical topic areas. But I realized after the first 10 years, what people really wanted was that transformational piece. And that transformation, typically for them, was going from feeling not capable of using the technology, confused by the technology, frustrated by the technology, to just feeling confident that they could do it. And
Hmm?
so I often said to him after the first 10 years we worked together, really what we're doing in our educational programs is helping people transform themselves into someone who believes the technology is something they can use without any problems. And that became my focus. And I think my teaching and presenting and all of my programs really shifted at that point once I had that realization, because I stopped focusing so much on the details and what we're doing and how we're doing it, and more on how I guaranteed no matter what we were talking about, at the end of that day, you'd feel like you could do it. And like the technology was something for you, not just reserved for technical people. And that was
Yeah.
part of my story too, right? So that comes from my beginnings, which is I was not a technical person. There was no internet when I was in college. Everything I do as far as my career is concerned, I learned on my own out of passion for it. And so I'm a non-technical person who became a very technical person. So I really believe in that journey and that we can all go on that journey. And that really shifted how I presented all of my programs.
Sarah, we're nerd whisperers. That's how I describe it. Our job is to take that technical jargon and make it relatable to the layperson, and vice versa, to take what the individual needs and wants and needs to accomplish and their aspirations and translate it for the technician and the engineer so that they can make the products and solutions better. So, when we talk about that engagement, I want to share with you a few different things that you can do to engage. We're using some great examples right here in this webinar. We've got the poll. We've got people feeding in their content, their comments in the comment section there. Um, but let's talk a little bit about some of the science, right? So we know with video format, people do not watch videos for more than 4 minutes. The retention rate jumps off a cliff at about 3 minutes and some change. So, um, why would you present them with a 25 or 45-minute video? If we know that they're not going to watch it, why would we do it? Well, because it's easy for us, right? And that understanding requires a level of empathy and understanding and appreciating how people learn, delivering education with empathy. Now, that is such a core part of, the work that Sarah has been doing and the work that we do here. It's one of the reasons why we mesh so well, and we're all great friends, and this is a fantastic endeavor. Um, make sure that people have the opportunity to actively engage in their learning. When you think about in-person training, are you giving them role play activities? Are they talking with each other and formulating their own solutions to problems? Are they actively writing in a notebook or a handout? Are they standing, sitting, stretching their arms out? All of these things are triggers for engagement. We talk about online learning. We use 12 different types of lessons. So it might be a video lesson here, it might be an audio lesson there, it might be a text lesson or a slide or an interactive multimedia lesson, uh, click throughs and maps and charts and graphs and all of these things. It could be surveys and quizzes or practical exercises where, you know, using some of the same tools you might use for a quiz, Instead of testing what you learned before, we're going to give you an opportunity to learn now. Let me give you an example of that. Um, as a destination and the value of a destination and destination marketing and tourism, I can tell you that tourism is worth X number of dollars to my community. Great. I just threw a piece of fish at you, right? Or I can ask you the question, how much do you think tourism is worth to our community? Multiple choice answers. Whether you get it right or wrong, it doesn't matter because we're going to provide you with an explanation so you have the opportunity to learn, right? So that's a form of engagement. It's self discovery, it's the opportunity for the individual to be a part of their own learning experience. Now, when we talk about accessibility, here are a few things that you can use from an accessibility standpoint to make your training more beneficial to everybody in your community. First, let's talk about, is it available to marginalized communities? Language. Is your program only available in one language? Or do you have a huge immigrant population that speaks another language that could also benefit from your program that would otherwise be missing out? Um, Timing. Is it available on demand? Nice and simple. Um, with regard to accessibility, is it available to people with visual impairments, neurodivergence? Is it available to people based on their learning styles? So let's take a look at some of these things. Let's actually provide training in the language that the user needs it. Let's provide content in different formats for different learning styles. Let's provide the training information when, where, and how people are learning best. And that all feeds back into that T, that transformations, engagement, and accessibility that are required for every learning program. And we're happy to talk about some specific examples. I know, Sarah, you've got some great examples of usage of this same module, this same uh, uh, methodology in your own work. So I'd love to hear from folks here. I like the nice things people are saying about you, Sarah. I say nice things about you too, even when you're not listening.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I love these ideas because I think we've got some people on the call where people are doing lots of different types of programs, right? So Lauren is working on her forest school training for teachers, directors. We've got folks that are doing a workshop about booth display and lighting, people who are teaching best practices on quality inspections, teaching managers on navigating uncertainty in the workforce to minimize stress. I love all of that because it's all sort of hard and soft skills, right? Some of them are people skills, some of them are leadership skills, but some of them are literal, tangible skills. Like I have to set up this booth and do the lighting. And I think what's interesting, Stephen, is what you're saying applies to all of these things, right? In every one of
Absolutely.
these cases, there's going to be different types of people who kind of gravitate towards different styles of learning and different types of materials. This is something that I think in the time period that I've been teaching online has really diversified. So when I first started teaching online all the way back in like around 2014, 2013, you know, hardly anybody was doing it. It was really limited how you did it. There weren't a lot of bells and whistles. You just got on a screen and went for it. If you were teaching online or you recorded, I recorded many hour-long classes. Many of those. I will say they were not easier for me. They were a nightmare, but a lot of times I had these big bulky things that I was giving people, but there wasn't a lot of competition. It was sort of new. People kind of went with whatever you had. But now we're in a position where so many of the different learning sort of programs that are available to people really give them a number of different options. So
Yeah.
if you're more social, you're going to get opportunities to interact with other students. You're going to do breakouts, or maybe you're going to do, different types of things when you're in person with different partners. But some people learn better when they get to be more introspective and quiet. So we need
Mhm.
that time as well for those people to get what they need. Some people love doing the live interaction. Some people still love being in person. Other people would rather do their classes in the evening when they have time. Their kids are in bed. They already got their day done. Now they have time to focus. So I think it's really important to think about that, however you're going to present the information, and not to start with what do I want to do or what do I think is best, but to really think about these different people that you want to serve, what potential learning styles they could have, and what kind of atmosphere are you creating, right? Whether it's online, in person, a combination of those things, and how many options are you going to give people? Right? Because I think when you start by thinking of the learner first, the student first, you actually end up building a program that makes much more sense. And it also forces you to step into their shoes and get out
Right.
of your sort of I'm the expert instructor shoes and think about what it's like when you didn't know anything about this. I've actually done that exercise many times for myself because I can literally go back to when I didn't know any of this stuff and remember what it was like to learn it on my own. And so I have to go back and remember that person and what would have helped me more, what would have helped me, have more choices in how I learned and how could I have processed it better so that it's stuck in my memory, right? Like were there quizzes, were there activities, were there something where I had to go learn something, come back and talk about it? All of those things I think have to be reframed to where we stop thinking of ourselves number one and we think of the students number one. And that's just going to allow us to create a program that's richer and that isn't so focused on what we want to do, but on what they might want to do and what they need rather than what we need.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the most incredible things has happened in the last 20 years. Um, some of what we're talking about is anecdotal, right? It's based on our years of practice and exercise and work in the field. The science has come into play with the data that supports what we understand. We know now when people zone out. We know why they're zoning out. We know how to prevent it. Um, and that leads me to what I think will be my parting comment. And it's a quote, and I'm gonna get it right this time. This is my third try. I get 1 out of 3. Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. Maya Angelou. And my personal ambition, and I share this, you know, from a very personal space, in a business context, it also applies. Is I aim to be better today than I was yesterday, and better tomorrow still. As a business person, as a philanthropist, as somebody who runs a nonprofit organization, as a boss, as a coworker, as an uncle to my niece and nephew, my nephew who calls me Uncle Turtle. If you bring that up in an email from here on out, you're going to get a good laugh out of me. So keep that in mind. To my family members, to even my dogs, and to the people who I share space with. I am in Joshua Tree National Park, so you have seen RVs go by in the background. But am I a better person today than I was yesterday for being here? And am I leaving this space better than I found it? So that is uh, one of my core learnings. And uh, Sally asked a question about ambassador programs and a hotel buy-in. Sally, we have a fantastic article that just published on our web, on our blog. We also have a video about getting hotel buy-in. So happy to share that with you after the call. Sarah, I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in because I saw Lauren made a comment about how she wishes after what we went through here in Western North Carolina in the fall, if someone had created a course on how to navigate operating after a major natural disaster, how to help pivot, how to respond to clients, how to support your staff. And so I did drop in the chat, Lauren, feel free to email me. I know somebody who's already working on a program like that, and I think has already offered it once. But, I think that's just a great example of I think when you look again from the perspective of what do the people you want to serve need? What do they want? What do they want to learn? I think that question that you asked earlier on, Stephen, is so key because I think in every educational program, that's where we should kind of begin, right? Is we asking people what do they want to learn about what we do? Especially for, looking at this list that people were sharing, Elizabeth, if you're teaching the best practices for quality inspections, have you been able to ask some of the people who might take that, what it is that they really need to know, right? Even a small sort of sampling of information in the beginning can help you plan kind of coursework that's much more, I think, useful, right? And actionable, as we talked about. And it also allows you to kind of hear from the student or a potential student, what transformation do they need to experience?
Right.
right? Like that's what I learned when I talked to my students 10 years ago. What I learned was they didn't really need a transformation about how to use Facebook, right? That was secondary. The transformation was I want to get on Facebook and not feel like I'm going insane and not feel super lost and frustrated. I had many really high level professionals that worked with me on digital marketing where the transformation wasn't, I need to actually be able to do the email marketing or I need to understand SEO. It's really that I want to be able to talk about these things so that I don't feel stupid. Like I'm the leader of the business, but I don't know enough to have an educated conversation. And that's just bringing my confidence down. So the transformation piece, I think, can come from asking that question out front. Same thing with Ruthie, if you're doing that workshop on booth display and lighting, have you been able to ask anybody who might come, what exactly it is that they need to learn so that you have an idea of what the priority should be? In most situations, we have at least a handful of people we could probably talk to about that stuff. Um, yeah, and Elizabeth, I see you're already on top of that. So that's awesome because I think that's going to help you from the beginning create a program that's super useful and actually goes right to the heart of what people need. That's the other thing, Stephen. I don't know if you agree with this, but I also feel like in a world where our attention spans are short, especially in the United States, I was watching a webinar yesterday on SEO to see how up to date I am with everything. I discovered that I'm totally on top of my game right now. But in watching that webinar, one of the things I did learn is that evidently human beings now have shorter attention spans than goldfish. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just frightening, but we've been headed in that direction for a while. So if that's the case, I find that it's even more important from the beginning of my programs, whether that's an intro to an online course or what I say when I start a day of teaching, is here's what we're doing and here's why we're doing it. And I want to hear from you guys about what you want to learn today. What's going to make you feel like it was worth it to be here? Right. Like I literally asked that question. Are you guys kind of doing something similar where you're working that right into your style? Not just like the preparing of the program, but while the program's happening.
And I want to comment on Patricia's programs, women-centric and in multiple languages. Um, we're also running programs in Africa, in Asia, that are really focused on social and economic development sustainably for different organizations. So, I'm really excited to see that, and I can't wait to learn more about it.
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to Patricia because I know her and her programs, I imagine, are pretty amazing all around.
Awesome.
So we've got a little bit of time. I want to make sure everybody gets their questions in. So again, you have the Q&A if you'd like to add them there, but you can continue to add them to the chat as well, and I will go ahead and take a look. The other things that I just wanted to kind of share, yeah, of course, Patricia. I mean that, by the way. It's not just me being nice. Like you are so talented. I know your programs are going to be really great. Um, but I do think one of the things I wanted to bring up too to add to this conversation is, to really going back to what you said, Stephen, about how we're always learning, we're always getting better, right? There's always room for improvement. I think one of the keys to helping people actually absorb information, feel comfortable while they're in the learning process, is letting them know that they didn't need to come there knowing everything. I think adult learners struggle because we're usually living in a world, especially for in our careers, where we are used to doing things we're really good at, talking about things that we already know about, right? And so when we put ourselves into an educational space, sometimes it is uncomfortable to go there and have to be like, I don't know anything about this. I don't understand what you're saying. But I try to really remind people like that's the point of learning is for all of us to admit we don't know everything, we can't know everything, and that we're always going to get better. My greatest exercise of that was teaching community college at night on top of my regular job. So when I first started teaching, I was actually doing a little bit of teaching and mostly handling marketing clients. But I wanted to explore teaching more because I really enjoyed it. And one of the ways I did that was to provide some classes for our local continuing education programs, the community
Mhm.
college. So that meant I went to work all day. At 6 o'clock, I started teaching. I taught until 9 p.m. Then I had to give everybody a survey about whether or not I was good at teaching. They told me everything they liked and didn't like about me. I had to read through all of that between 9:30 and 10. And then I had to drop it off to the lead of the continuing education department. So that created a world for about almost a decade where I literally got to hear what people thought about me every time I taught a class. And sometimes I had already worked 8 hours, then taught for 3 hours. And I'm sitting there hearing, like, you stink. You talk too fast. Um, you think you know it all, right? Like all sorts of things. And I really learned to just have fun with it,
Yeah.
and not take it personally and to realize it was because people's learning styles were different than mine. And so as I went through that process, I actually got to understand in real time what other learning styles are like. And as I went along, I just kept adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. And that's led me to where I am now, which I think I still have plenty of things to continue learning and improve upon. But I really want to encourage everyone, especially if you have a program where you feel like it's not really working yet, or maybe you've never done a program before, but you're going to launch something soon. Be okay with that process. That is what it's about. And if you embrace the learning process as the leader or the instructor or the teacher, do you know what happens? The students embrace it too. And that's actually the point, right? If we don't embrace it, we're literally doing the opposite of what we're asking them to do, which isn't very helpful. So we all have to get comfortable with that process. And I think it's just something as adults, so it's a big challenge for us.
And Sarah, I will echo your expression of needing to find comfort in discomfort,
Yeah.
and also point out something that you and I did differently. You went back to community college to teach. I signed up for university courses as a student. And I have to tell you, every time I walk into the program, whether it was AI ethics and governance with Brown or Harvard business sustainability or, inclusion and whatever the other one was from University of South Florida, um, you know, I start every one of those programs with a knot in my stomach. And if I apply that understanding to everybody who's learning from us and from what we do, it makes it much, much easier to deliver education with empathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the link for the conference coming up?
The link for the conference, yeah, I'll pop that in the chat. It's DIYtourismmarketing.com. So again, if you want to check that out, I will drop that in so everybody can take a look at what we're doing. We have a great video up there. I do want to add one last question, Stephen, just to see if you have feedback on this. But how do you feel about the difference between younger versus older learners? What are you guys seeing in that world? Are you seeing a difference between, let's say, somebody's in their 20s versus somebody's in their 60s? How are you guys addressing that? Is it a conversation that you're having? I'm just curious what you all have to share about that.
It's not something that I've really taken a deep dive into. But what we do understand is that both audiences have a hard time sitting down to learn something new. And I think, the younger generations are more apt to look for things on a mobile device, handheld, on the go, whereas the older generations are more looking for, something that they can use with their laptop or their desktop computer. So we are noticing those. The other distinctions between the younger and the older learners is the rewards and benefits that go into um, motivating them to take a course. So, you know, a young person might be more interested in the experiential benefits of the course, whereas an older person might be more interested in um, the the recognition that comes with or the activity that they can do because of it. So, and when I say rewards, um, I've talked too much about tourism ambassador programs because it's just one part of what we do, but maybe it's the opportunity to be to deliver user generated content. That's going to appeal more to the younger person than the certificate of completion, which appeals more to the older person.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I would say too, I think one of the other exercises I did was I had a mentor for a long time at Western Carolina University, and he was nice enough to invite me to teach some of his freshman classes. So I had that experience of teaching people that were much, much younger than me and, just out of high school. And what I found most interesting, especially in the in-person space, was how much harder I had to work for the verbal engagement from those folks.
Yeah.
right? And that, the pandemic and them all having to learn from home, all of that kind of stuff has actually kind of expanded that issue to a certain extent, right? So, one of the things that I've learned about, let's say, as an example of something that helps younger audiences, is when I'm working with them in person, I really want to give them direction for social engagement, right? Because sometimes if I'm like, all right, talk amongst yourselves, everybody just sits there. And I'm like,
Dave
uh-oh.
Dave is right. Seniors are on their devices, um, but our general attrition rates and general participation rates actually show a drastic difference in even when people are taking programs. But yeah, I mean, we're all on our devices, and that's part of accessibility. Is the training available how people want to learn? Is it available on a mobile device? Is it available on a desktop? Is it available, you know, Saturday or Tuesday or 11 p.m., and you're right. The data's out there, but you're definitely right. We are still on those things.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Elizabeth. Younger audiences also prefer podcasts and shorter content. Um, that's for sure. Like I said, when I started out with the content strategy roadmap, which is one of my main courses for small businesses and marketing professionals, I had, 30-minute, 60-minute classes on there, deep dives into things. Those are now all modules that are never more than 15 minutes for the most part.
Micro learning.
And the 15-minute ones are the really technical ones where I'm demoing how to do something literally on the system, right?
Yeah.
So I had to go back and really take all of that content apart over time. And even though I think younger people sort of inspired that change, I have to be honest, older people now appreciate that change as well.
Yeah.
In the sense that everybody has limited time to invest, right? So shorter sound bites are stronger.
Yep. And from a technical perspective, the Association for Talent Development has had a lot of momentum behind micro learning.
Yeah.
Those doses of knowledge that you can gain and absorb in 60 to 180 seconds. So you're absolutely spot on with that.
So again, we've got, like I said, just a few minutes left. If there's any other questions, you can jump on in and share them. I do want to quickly, like I said, just show you the conference website and invite you later today. I dropped the link in the chat. Um, but just to get on there and take a look at what we are doing and the upcoming schedule, we've had some changes, of course, because of all of the different changes that happened here. But just to show you, when you go to the website right at the top, you'll see there's a video right at the top. So in the spirit of micro learning and quickly putting together what we're about, I think that video does a great job of showing you what we did last year. And I saw the question that I had, and I'll just repeat that. To anyone who didn't see it in the chat, if you were already registered, like Chris was, everything was moved over. So your tickets moved over. If you'd already booked your hotel rooms, they were moved over. So you don't have to change anything. You should be getting emails from me already about that. And yeah, Patricia, there is going to be a virtual component just like before. So this is a hybrid event. We broadcast all of our sessions live while they're happening, which is quite a crazy experience, but I think turns out really fun. And then at the end, I actually edit every single session from the conference if you attended the hybrid or the in-person, and you get copies of all of that. So if there's a class, we run multiple classes at the same time. So if there were two that you wanted to see, but you could only see one live, you're able to go back and watch all of those. And so we had a lot of people that have really enjoyed that part of it, again, because they can dig in. And I will say, for those of you who work with destinations or larger teams, there's been definitely, I think, many situations in the past where after the event has happened, if one of your team could attend it virtually or in person, you have those videos. You can go back, revisit some of that stuff, take some of that learning back to your team, explore those topics in more depth. So again, if you'd like to join us in Asheville, we'd really, really love to have you. Again, our community is definitely going through some things. And so we are certainly really inviting everyone to show up here and just be with us in Western North Carolina if you want to. But
And we're
virtually, it'll be really fun. Every room will have a different sort of moderator available to help you. So it's really easy to join from any location.
And I think, Sarah, to your point about Asheville being back to some degree. I think this is also a great opportunity for us as a tourism community to show our support for the city, and to show our support, more importantly, for the people of Asheville who have been through quite a bit, and I say Asheville and the surrounding areas. Um, so I'm really excited to be there. I'm really excited to dig in and do some activities while I'm in town, and visit the local restaurants and pubs and take my dogs for walks down the sidewalk and all that good stuff. So I can't wait to be there.
Yeah, and thanks, Angela. We can't wait to see you, and hopefully Chris will see you as well. Again, if you have any questions, I'm going to drop my email into the chat, and I want to just invite everyone, if you'd like to talk about this topic in more depth, or you have questions that come up later. I think once we have these conversations, there's often times where, something pings you later. Always do not hesitate to reach out to me. And again, I'm glad to hop on the phone even and talk about the conference as well if you want to learn more about it. But again, yeah, and Angela, thanks for that suggestion.
I like
Um,
how she thinks.
yeah, I was going to say you and Stephen are mind melding from afar because we've been talking about this. So we're really excited to have some different things that we're going to offer to bring people together, and we really appreciate that. But as usual, I just want to say thanks so much to everyone for being here and joining us. Um, Again, we will be running our webinars going forward on the first Wednesday of every month as we have in the past. And I want to give a big shout out to Learn Tourism for helping us continue that tradition, because I'm very thrilled to still have folks here with us on a monthly basis. And so again, my email's in the chat. If you have any ideas of topics you'd like to cover this year, I also want to encourage you to go ahead and let me know. And I'm glad to see if we can add it into our docket this year. But again, thanks so much. I'll let you all get back to work and have a great rest of your day. I look forward to hopefully seeing you at the next digital drop-in in February.
You're awesome, Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Stephen. Have a great day, everyone.